every day, everywhere, across New Zealand.
From the smallest town
to the biggest city.
We have the finest tools.
And expert advice.
For any job.
For any person.
Who are we?
Who are we?
Who are we?
We are Nelson, Hamilton, Pukekohe,
Rangiora.
We are Trade Zone.
We are Trade Zone.
We are Trade Zone.
Trade Zone, proud to bring you Trade Zone Addicted to Fishing.
I'm Nicky, and since I could hold a handline, I have been addicted to fishing. Whether it's stray lining for snapper, jigging for kingfish, dropping deep for harpooker, or jumping in and going spearfishing, I love it all. Join me each week as I road trip around the country, travelling to both New Zealand's most iconic fishing destinations and stepping off the beaten track to show just how good Kiwi fishing really is. Whether it's a girls' trip, fishing with a local, or riding solo, I am on a constant quest to satisfy my insatiable fishing addiction. Welcome to Trade Zone Addicted to Fishing this week. Now, I constantly get asked, where do I target kingfish? How do I target kingfish? What's the best time of the tide to go and target them? How do I prepare them? How do I rig for them? What bait do I use? How do I fish for them off the land? How do I jump in and spear them? We're answering all your questions today. We're literally going to go through one by one and we're going to answer every single question that you have, and we're going to break it down from land-based, boat-based, and even talk a little bit about spearfishing for them as well. So join us today, but firstly we're going to take you back to some footage of actually catching some of these big bruisers. Come on.
Here he is.
Here he comes. What an awesome start to the day.
Yep, you're on. You're on.
Come on, Nicky, you can do it.
Woohoo! Woohoo! That's a big thing too. Woohoo!
Thank you, Mr. Kingy. Looks like it's the big day.
Yeah.
That is awesome! So when it comes to land-based fishing for kingies, we're basically looking for rocky coastal structure that has bait and current. You know, places like Coromandel is a really good example. So let's have a look in here. All up along here, around these points. So much structure, so many ledges. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bunch of kingies just patrolling up and down here, especially with all that current running through. These kingies, they just go up and down the coast, and you know, if you can find a safe place for you to jump onto the rocks, you know, I'll think to myself, once I've got my kingy, how am I going to get it up onto the rocks if I'm not putting it back into the water? You know, is there a gutter that steps down to the water where I can safely hand gaff or jump down and pull my fish in? Okay, so when you want to get a live bait and put it out the back so you can watch a kingy come along and absolutely annihilate it, this is the setup that I would use. I've got my TLD50 and I've got it spooled with 24 kilo mono. And coupled up with my TLD50, I've got my Shimano Status bent butt rod, and I use that one because it's got heaps of power for those kingies. You want to make sure that you've got really, really quality gear because they will test your gear. And if you are using something that's cheap, and nasty, then they'll probably find something that's wrong with it and they will break it. And then I've done a bimini twist knot and I've connected 150 pound Suffolk's wind-on leader to my bimini, and then that's given us 5 metres of 150 pounds. Then we've got the ball bearing swivel here. This is a 24 kilo ball bearing swivel, and you know what, you may think I'm crazy for having this piece of driftwood here, but I don't use balloons anymore. They're a thing of the past. They break in the water and then they just get fed to the fishes, which is not good for their tummies. So balloons are out, driftwood is in. And it actually acts and does the exact same thing, but if it comes off, it just goes back to the environment. I've just tied it on to the very top of my 24 kilo ball bearing swivel with a little bit of wax string. So I've tied the wax string off onto the swivel and then onto the stick. And that's just going to bobble along, and then when the live bait gets eaten by the kingfish, then you know that you're going to be all good. You'll see it splashing around, and it's game on. Okay, and then I've just got a uni knot connecting them onto my swivel, and then I've got a 100-pound mono here, and I've just connected that on with another uni knot onto my 7-burrow circle hook. I'm going to put the barb of the hook through the nostrils of my live bait from side to side. So say that you were using a piper, then you might want to go down in size of hook. So your circle hook for live baiting is always going to match the live bait. You know, so 6-burrow for, say, a piper, and then this is a 7-burrow, be perfect for a jackmack. And then if I was using a nice big kahawai or a really big koe, then I'd probably go 8-burrow. So that's our setup here for live baiting off the rocks.
Coming up after the break, we crack into some more of the kingfish good oil. This week on Trade Zone Addicted to Fishing, we're dishing out all the tips and tricks on how to catch a kingfish.
This is why I love fishing. Check out this stunning fish. You can see that beautiful yellow tail down there. That was unbelievable.
So if I went out somewhere and I wanted to target kingfish with, say, a live bait and drop it down onto a pinnacle, I'd be looking for some deeper water, and by deep I mean 70-80 metres with structure that comes up to whatever. So you might be looking at places like Whangaroa, the Ruahine Shoal. These places actually go, I think they're from memory about 70 to 80 metres, and they come up to like 17 metres. So what's happening down there? The kingfish are rounding up the bait fish into a tight condensed ball when they're feeding. They're plucking off all the individual ones that come outside the school, and that's their dinner. Let's take a quick look at the map. I'll show you what I mean. So this here is the Ruahine Shoal. It's quite a well-known spot. As you can see here, we've got the surrounding areas which go sort of 70, 75 metres, and then this here is a pinnacle that goes all the way up to 15. So as you can imagine, underneath the water, that is just a dramatic spike or pinnacle which has a whole heap of bait fish and current flushing around it, and that's where we've seen a lot of kingfish patrol up and down. Right, so when you rock up to a pinnacle and you see it stacked with fish, this is the setup that I would use. This is Metallica 12 and it's spooled with 50-pound braid, and I connect to my 150-pound trace with a PR knot. Now, just above the 24-kilo ball-bearing clip swivel, I've got an 8-ounce ball sinker. So this is going to push my live bait and my setup all the way down to the depth that I want to be at. So I've looked on the Raymarine, we're fishing at 80 metres worth of water, and say our pinnacle goes from 80 metres all the way up to 40, and the fish is sitting down at 60. Then I'm going to utilise the rainbow braid that we've got on the Metallica 12, and I'm going to put it down 6 colours, knowing that each colour is 10 metres. Then, on the rest of the business end, we've got our 80-pound trace, and we're going to go all the way. I've got about 3 metres worth of trace here, so nice and long in case there's any rocks down below. And then we've got our 7-burrow circle hook, and that is going to be hooked. A lot of fishermen seem to be sort of 50-50. They go side to side through the nostrils, or they go up the chin through into the nose. You can do either. It really does come down to preference with the style of fishing. All right, so let's talk about spots where I would slow troll live baits. So what we're looking for is rugged coastline, some bait. Mussel farms are really good. You can also find kingfish in the harbour because they're full of bait, so of course the kingis will be there. And when you go out there, hopefully what you'll find is the bait fish being rounded up into a condensed ball. So the kingis strategically pluck off the injured bait fish that aren't being rounded up, and they turn into dinner. So if I'm going to tow a live bait behind the boat, then what I'll do is I'll hook the live bait up underneath the chin, up through the nose, and then we're going to tow it behind the boat at sort of 1 to 2 knots. We want to have it nice and slow so that we're not actually drowning our live baits. And if you've got outriggers like I do here on the extreme, then you can put them up on the outriggers so that they stay nice and apart if you've got 2 live baits in the water. If you ask me, I reckon that the best time is when there's current. So obviously not during slack water. Now, most Spearos would probably agree with that, but in saying that, a lot of legendary kingfish fishermen that I've fished with have actually shared that on the deep water pins when you're fishing off the boat, during slack tide, it gives the bait fish an opportunity to move around and move their hiding spots. And the kingfish know that, they're so smart, so they take that as an opportunity to munch down on the bait fish. So everybody's always going to have their own opinion on it, but if you ask me, when the current is running, that's the best time. I do know one thing though, and that's 100% accurate about catching kingfish. You're never going to catch them on the couch, so just get out there and give it a go. Kingfish are not seasonal. In the middle of winter, I like to target kingis because that's when you get the really big fat ones that have the extra layer of fat to try and help insulate them. In summer, they seem to be here in bigger numbers, bigger schools, but yeah, they're definitely not seasonal. So the bag limit for yellowtail kingfish here in New Zealand is 3 per person per day. Personally, I think that's way overboard. On my boat, we've got a bit of a rule. If you catch kingis, it's 1 per person per day. And the minimum size length is 75 centimetres. There's also a combined bag limit. So say you got your 3 kingfish and then you want to go out deep dropping, you can only catch 2 harp hooker and bass, rather than your 3 kingfish and your 5 harp hooker and bass. It's a total of 5 together.
Tackle tips and tactics, brought to you by Smart Marine.
The Credo wireless braking system by the guys over at Trail Parts is wicked. I love it because it's so easy to use. You just plug it into your USB or into your cigarette lighter and it's touchscreen. So, say that I'm driving over like those mad hills going up over to Waiho Bay and they're really steep and it's like a cliff face, then I can just grab my braking controller and I can go up or down on the brakes, which is so good when you're towing a big boat like I do. The other cool features of this is that you can use it on any vehicle in New Zealand because it's 12 and 24 volt. I think that's really, really cool. Another thing I really enjoy about the Credo wireless braking system is that it's actually designed by Kiwis. So a bunch of guys here in New Zealand have actually put this together and they've made it for the needs of the fishermen towing your boat around New Zealand. It also doesn't need to be hardwired, so you can literally just plug it in. So it's a wireless system, obviously, so you can take it from one vehicle and just plug it straight into the USB or cigarette lighter and you can use it again in the next vehicle.
For all your fishing needs, head on down to your local Smart Marine store. After the break, we dish out more tips and tricks on targeting and catching kingis. This week, we're sharing all the tips and tricks on how to catch a kingfish from the boat, land and spearfishing.
So one of the easiest ways to catch a kingfish, in my opinion, is just to use a Rapala saltwater X-Wrap and just to tow it behind your boat. Now, this is awesome if you've got kids that really want to catch a kingfish because you can tow these at 6 knots. They go down to about 12 metres. They have a bib on them, which means that it pushes them down underneath the water. And when you're trolling them along behind your boat, the kingfish just see them and they think it's a bait fish. They just cannot resist. And yeah, so basically I would use my Telica 20 setup or something similar to this, which is the 50-pound braid. We've got that connected via a PR knot to our 100-pound trace. And then we've just got a uni knot with our 24-kilo snap swivel, nice heavy duty there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take our Rapala and we're just going to clip it on. Super easy, something fun that you can do with the kids, keep them away from the double treble, and it won't be long before you hook up. There's a bit of a rule of thumb when it comes to setting your drag. So it's generally at strike, it's going to be set as 1/3 of the line weight. So say that you're dealing with 80 pound, which ends up being 37 kilos, then you're going to set your drag at 12 kilos at strike. All right, so we've got our 24 kilos set up with the TLD 50 here, and I've just got my set of scales here, and we're just going to pull, we've got it on strike, so what does that say? That says 10 kilos of drag, so that's way too much. So we're just going to ease off our drag, and then we're going to put the dial back a little bit. I'm just going to go like that, and then we're just going to click it back a little bit and put it back up to strike and try again. Kingfish love cohiros and jack mackerels. They're probably the top of the list when it comes to kingfish candy. They're kind of like the fried chicken to kingfish. You can also use lots of other things like squid or piper, and if you get really desperate you could probably use yellow-eyed mullet, although that's probably at the bottom of the list. But there's many things that you can use when it comes to kingfish, but the jack macs and the cohies are definitely at the top. When you get your kingfish boat side, the best way to handle it is to actually grab it on the inside of the mouth underneath the chin. Now, they've got like sandpaper on their lips. They don't actually have teeth per se, so don't worry about putting your hand in there. If you're going to keep the fish, if you can grab its tail, grab its mouth and its tail, but if you're going to release it, then we don't recommend grabbing its tail because you could break the backbone. So say you're spearfishing and you get a kingy, what you do is you stab it in the head, right down deep, and that dispatches the fish. But say we bring it on board and we don't want to get blood everywhere, then we have a welcome aboard bat and we give it across the head, a couple of knocks, Bob's your uncle. So if you want to go out and you want to spear a kingy, what you're looking for is pressure points, you're looking for islands, you're looking for rocks awash or diveable pinnacles. And if you've got current and you can find bait, then you've got a pretty good chance of finding a kingy. So when you find a nice big pack of kingies, or even just one on its own, and you want to get its attention so that it comes over to you, you do this on the water. Now don't laugh, okay, you can laugh, but basically you grunt like a John Dory, so like this. I don't know if you can hear that, but because what happens is that's like a distress signal. So the kingfish will hear it and it will come back over towards you, and then boom, Bob's your uncle. And also, when you shoot it, hold on. I know it's kind of obvious, but these fish are so powerful. Pound for pound, they're probably one of the most powerful fish in the ocean, so hold on. If you want to learn how to get into spearfishing, definitely give the guys at Weddy a call. They have a superstore in Albany and they are amazing. When I first got into it, they took me through everything and I can confidently now go out and shoot a kingy. We spend a lot of time and money and effort catching these delicious kingfish. So when we get them out of the water, the first thing that we want to do is bleed them so that we can get the most beautiful white flesh that we can possibly get. Now, how do we do that? So what you do is you get a knife and you just run it through the inside of the gill plate. And you'll do that off the back of the boat, ideally in the water. So you might want to put a rope, say as a noose over the tail of the fish, and you want to sort of wash that water through so that we get all that blood out. And then we're going to take it and we're going to put it into some salt ice. And sometimes I even like to put it overnight in salt ice because it really does set that flesh. And we've got rid of the blood, so it's all good. Alright, so the first things first, welcome to our filleting station. I like to make sure that my area is nice and clean. The reason for that is because I don't want my delicious kingfish fillets to have to be washed. So if I can keep this area completely clean, it means that there's going to be less bacteria and my fillets are going to stay fresher for longer, because it's actually the bacteria that causes that sort of fishy smell. So we went spearfishing yesterday, and whenever I spear a fish I like to gut and gill the fish, and I just keep the guts, to be honest. Throw it in the freezer. Perfect burly for next time I'm snapper fishing. I've actually stuffed some paper towels up inside, so if any extra liquid does come out, they'll soak it up for me and then they will stay away from my fillets. Give it a quick sharpen. It's actually not too tricky to fillet one of these beautiful specimens. Similar to a snapper, you come up along here, facing down in towards the wing and the head, and I like to just feel my way all the way up so I don't miss any of that beautiful, delicious meat. Then we're just going to cut about 1 inch in the whole way down. So just like with most fish, you're just sort of working piece by piece. Then we're going to go up over the rib cage. So now we've all but filleted the whole of this side. We're now going to flip this fish over and we're going to do the same to the other side. So basically what we're doing is we're just rolling our fillet off piece by piece. For you at home that are looking at this going, oh my gosh, I left so much on the fish, well, that was actually on purpose. We're going to do some sashimi today. I'm going to share with you how to do the chili and lime sashimi. And for that, we're going to utilise every little nook and cranny. So we get just a normal spoon, and we're going to go straight down from the spine into each of these. And we're going to be getting a perfect sashimi-sized piece. This is the meat that is just so beautiful and tender. Right, so we're just going to cut down the centre of the fish, cut down either side of that bloodline. There we have it, 4 beautiful fillets. Now, we're just going to take the skin off. And then I'm just going to cut it into pieces. So next I'm going to take you into the kitchen. I'm going to share with you how to make my chili and lime sashimi. All right, so if you're a fan of sashimi, then I have something for you. This is a recipe that my husband and I designed together. Actually, we got some of our favourite different flavours and textures, and we decided that we'd put it together. This is my husband and I's recipe for lime and chili kingfish sashimi. So all we do is we take our salt and pepper and we generously add that flavour. All right, now we're going to take some of my favourite flavours, which is spring onion, and we're going to generously place it on the fish, and we're just going to kind of scatter it on the plate as well. Oh, I can smell it. It smells so good. All right, and then we're going to add the chili. Now, you don't have to add the chili, obviously. If you're not into it, that's cool, but I love my chili. Then we're going to cut up a lime, and we're just going to drizzle it. This has just got a little bit of olive oil in it, just a few drips down our fish. And then to finish it off, we've got some beautiful mint from the garden. Those flavours with the bitter taste of the lime, with the chili and the beautiful spring onion, it is just divine. And that mint just tops it off. Chili and lime sashimi. You!
Gear, Care and Catch, brought to you by Trade Zone.
Hey Richard, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. How are you, Nicky?
Yeah, good, thanks. Nice to be back in Ringiora.
That's good. Today we're looking at a couple of the CRC products. The zinc, it is the main one.
Yep.
Can be used on any outdoor surface that's likely to rust.
So like a swing?
Yeah, like swing sets,
Trailers.
maybe the front gate or a trailer.
Okay.
The advantage of that is that you put it on, and if you do scratch it, it will self-heal.
So it won't corrode?
It won't corrode.
That's good. That's nice and handy.
So it gives a very high level of corrosion protection. The bright zinket can then be used to put over top as a top coat.
Okay.
They're both fast-drying spray paints, but it looks exactly like standard galvanised steel.
Nice. And CRC is a very good, trusted Kiwi brand as well.
It is. It's been around a long time, well proven in the marketplace.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. If you have any galvanising needs, come on down to your local Trade Zone store.
For all your engineering needs, head in store or order online at www.tradezone.co.nz. Check out our YouTube page for tips, tricks, and entire episodes of every season. And like us on Facebook to keep up to date with competitions and all your fishing news. Trade Zone Addicted to Fishing is proud to be with Extreme Boats, powered by Honda Marine. We tow it around in our custom-built G-Fab trailer on the back of our Mercedes-Benz V6. When we're not out on the water, it's all stored away in our BuildLink kit set shed. Smart Marine supply us with our Shimano tackle, and we find the best fishing spots with our Raymarine. We finish the job thanks to Trail Trades, and move in precision thanks to Seastar. We maintain our gear using Ting tools, and we keep up to date thanks to New Zealand Fishing News magazine, and it all keeps performing thanks to Trade Zone.